She didn't know which sound would end her life first, the pounding on the bathroom door or the trembling buzz of her phone against the tiles. Hours earlier, Sarah Mitchell looked like any other woman walking home from work, holding herself together with quiet smiles and tired hope. But tonight, hope had run out. Her arm throbbed with a pain that shouldn't exist in any home. Her ribs screamed each time she breathed, and the man on the other side of the door was promising things she knew he would do. So she did the only thing she could. With shaking fingers and blurred vision, she typed a plea for help to the one person she thought would come running. But in her panic, she pressed the wrong number. And somewhere across the city, a man who did not believe in coincidences looked down at his phone and saw a stranger whispering for rescue. A stranger who had minutes left. He didn't ask who she was. He didn't ask what happened. He simply stood, gave one command, and everything in Sarah's world began to shift. Because the man who received her message wasn't a hero. He was something far more dangerous. She would remember the sound long before she remembered the pain. Not the screaming, not the shattering glass, but the small, trembling buzz of her phone on the bathroom floor, coming from the same shaking hands that could no longer hold it. That was the moment her life split into a before and after. Because on the night Sarah Mitchell typed a desperate message with a broken arm, she hit one wrong number and awakened a man on the other end who did not believe in coincidences, apologies, or second chances. A man whose response would not just change her night. It would change the course of her entire life. And as the footsteps outside the bathroom grew heavier, closer, colder, Sarah pressed her back against the door and prayed someone, anyone, would hear her before it was too late. She had no idea that someone already had, and he was coming. But whether he was her savior or something far more dangerous was a truth she would only discover when the door finally broke open. Long before she found herself huddled on that bathroom floor, Sarah lived a life so quiet it was almost invisible. A small apartment, a modest job, and a circle of friends who had slowly drifted away as her world shrank, piece by piece. Days blurred seamlessly into one another. Morning coffee in a chipped mug, a short walk to work, polite smiles with coworkers who never got close enough to ask questions, and quiet evenings waiting for the sound of keys turning in the lock. That sound used to make her heart lift. She used to think it meant love had finally arrived, that she had finally chosen right, that the loneliness she carried like an extra limb would dissolve under someone's arms. But love is rarely loud when it disappears. It slips away quietly, replaced with something colder, something that made Sarah feel smaller every day. She did not recognize the shift at first. She excused it the way people excuse storms. It's just a bad day. He's under stress. It'll get better. She wanted to believe she had not mistaken attention for affection, possession for protection. She wanted to believe she deserved the man she had once defended to her friends with stubborn conviction. But the truth made itself known in inches. A raised voice, a slammed door, a grip on her wrist just a little too tight, a look in his eyes that never used to be there. And slowly, quietly, Sarah disappeared from her own life. She stopped going out after work, stopped answering calls, stopped laughing at anything that wasn't rehearsed. Her world shrank to the size of their apartment, and then smaller to the size of his moods. A life lived carefully, tiptoeing through conversations, gauging the weight of silence, memorizing the warning signs of an oncoming storm. She wasn't weak. She wasn't foolish. She was hopeful. Hopeful that the man she once believed in would return. Hopeful that love didn't come with conditions or punishments. Hopeful that kindness could soften anger. But hope, when used against you, becomes a cage. And by the time Sarah realized she was trapped, the door had already closed behind her. The night it all changed began like the others. Dinner half prepared, his voice already tense when he walked through the door, frustration radiating from him before he said a single word. Sarah could always sense it. A shift in air pressure, a tightening her chest, a prickling of instinct she had learned not to ignore. She tried to soothe the moment, offering gentleness where there was none, quiet responses where anger demanded an echo. But anger doesn't listen. It only grows. This time, it grew faster than she could navigate. One accusation became another. One shout became two. Every explanation sounded like defiance. Every attempt to calm him only deepened the storm. And then pain bloomed in her arm, sharp and burning, as she stumbled backward, falling onto cold tile that had no softness left in it. She didn't scream at first. Shock can silence even the loudest terror. But the second wave of pain came with a clarity she had never felt before, a clarity that whispered, "He is going to kill you one day if you stay." Her breath hitched, her vision blurred. An instinct, pure and primal, took over. She crawled toward the bathroom, the only door with a lock, each inch a battle against her own trembling body. She slammed it shut, turned the lock, pressed her back against the wood as if her weight could hold it in place. Her phone slipped from her fingers and hit the tiles with a small, brittle tap. She knew she couldn't call the police. Derek had told her enough times, "Don't even think about it. You don't know who I work for." Whether his claims were true or not, fear had done its job. So she did the only thing she could think of. She opened her messages, searched for the familiar contact that had always meant safety. The number she had dialed 1,000 times growing up. The one person who would drop everything to come get her. Her mother. Tears blurred the screen, her good hand shaking as she typed through pain that made her vision swim. Her breath quickened. Her ribs ached. Her heartbeat thundered louder than the footsteps outside the door. She typed the words she had said only once before in her life. "Mom, please help. Derek broke my arm. I'm scared. He won't let me leave." She hit send, and she waited. A minute, then 2, then 3. The reply came just as Derek rattled the doorknob, his voice dripping with false calm. "Sarah, open the door. Don't make this worse." Her phone buzzed. She looked down. "Who is this?" "You have a wrong number." Her heart stopped. Confusion crashed into her. She blinked at the message as if her eyes were betraying her. Her mother's number, gone from the screen. A different number stood in its place, one she had never seen before. In the panic, the tears, the swelling in her right eye, she had mistyped by a single digit. Her chest tightened. She covered her mouth to keep from crying out. And then another message appeared. "Where are you? Are you safe right now?" Not her mother. Not anyone she knew. Just a stranger on the other end of the line. She wanted to ignore it, but Derek's voice grew sharper. The pounding on the door louder. She could hear the anger rising, anger that had nowhere left to go except at her. She typed quickly, desperate. "Locked in bathroom. 2247 Riverside Apartments, Unit 15. Please don't call police. He'll kill me if cops show up." Her finger hovered over send for a single heartbeat. She pressed it, and then nothing. Silence. No reply. Derek's voice dropped to a whisper so cold it made her bones shake. "I'm going to count to 3. Her phone vibrated. "I'm sending someone. Do not open that door." "Hold on." Before she could respond, he reached 3. The door exploded inward. He stood in the doorway, breath heavy, face twisted, rage and panic mixing into something she had never seen before. His voice cracked as he screamed at her, but she barely heard him. Every nerve in her arm burned. Her ribs throbbed with every breath. And fear, raw, suffocating fear, wrapped around her like ice. He demanded to know who she texted. She told him the truth. A wrong number, a mistake. He didn't believe her. He paced. He cursed. He slammed his fist into the cabinet so hard the wood splintered. Then another sound joined the room. A car door. More than one. Footsteps. Heavy. Purposeful. Derek froze. His face drained of color. He whispered, "Who did you call?" But Sarah didn't get the chance to answer. The front door didn't open. It was torn off its hinges with a force that shook the walls. She heard Derek make a noise she had never imagined he could make. A terrified whimper. And then heavy steps crossed the apartment, slow and steady. Confident. Controlled. A voice followed. Cold. Deep. Calm. A voice of someone who did not shout, because shouting was beneath him. "Where is she?" Derek tried to speak. Tried to argue. Tried to pretend he had any control left. The sound of a body slamming into the wall cut him off. Silence. A moment so heavy it felt like the air itself was waiting. Then the footsteps approached. Closer. Closer still. and the doorway filled with the silhouette of a man Sarah had never seen before. A man who looked carved from stone and shadow, eyes sharp enough to see everything she couldn't hide. He didn't look confused, or surprised, or hesitant. He looked at her injuries with a quiet fury that wasn't aimed at her, but at the man who had caused them. He said only one thing. "You sent the message." And she nodded. He didn't ask another question. He simply tilted his head slightly, and someone behind him stepped forward, a second man, younger, speaking gently as he helped her stand. Behind them, Derek was pinned against the wall by a single hand around his throat. She couldn't look away. The stranger holding him there leaned in close, speaking words too low for her to hear. But whatever he said drained what little bravado Derek had left. His feet kicked helplessly in the air before he was dropped, gasping. She was led out of the apartment, down the stairs, into a car she had never seen. Not forcibly, gently, as though she might break with one wrong touch. Her mind was spinning, her body aching, her thoughts scattered. But she kept seeing the man in the doorway. The cold fury in his eyes, the calm in his voice, the way he had said, "You sent the message," like it was an answer to a question she hadn't asked. She didn't know his name. Not yet. Not the weight of it. Not the history that followed it like a shadow. Not the power it carried in the city she had once thought she understood. She only knew one thing. The night she typed that wrong number, she didn't contact a stranger. She contacted a storm wearing a suit. And storms never come quietly. She would learn his name soon. She would learn who he was. But as she sat in the back of that car, trembling, holding her broken arm, she knew only this. The man who had walked through her door was not a man who arrived late. He was a man who arrived exactly when he intended to. And she didn't know if he was her savior, or to something far more dangerous. Sarah woke to unfamiliar softness. A bed too warm, too deep, too clean to belong to the apartment she had fled. A faint scent of cedar in the air. The sound of distant traffic humming far below. For a moment she didn't move, didn't breathe, letting the stillness settle around her like a blanket. Her mind floated somewhere between sleep and memory, unsure which world was real. Then her eyes opened, and she remembered. The bathroom, the broken arm, the wrong number, the man tearing through the doorway like a force of nature. She sat slowly, wincing as pain reminded her that her body had not forgotten the night before. A cast wrapped her arm. Her ribs throbbed beneath fresh bandages. Her lip was swollen, but she was alive. For the first time in months, she was alive without fear. She blinked at the room around her. High ceilings, soft lighting, windows stretching from floor to sky. A space that whispered money in every corner, yet somehow still felt quiet. Safe. It didn't make sense. None of it did. A soft knock came at the door. Before she could answer, it opened just enough for a familiar face to peek inside. The blond man from last night. His voice was gentle, almost apologetic. "Good morning, Miss Mitchell. May I come in?" She nodded, uncertain. He stepped in with respectful distance, carrying a tray of something warm. "I'm Victor," he said quietly. "We met last night. You were not in the best condition to remember." She almost laughed, but it came out more like a breath. "Where am I?" "In a safe location," he replied. "Arranged for you." "By who?" Victor paused, as if measuring how much to reveal. Then simply said, "By the man you texted." Her heart fluttered, not with warmth, but with confusion. "I didn't mean to text him," she whispered. "I know. I don't even know who he is." Victor nodded once. "You will. In time." She lowered her gaze to her cast. "Why would he help me?" she murmured. The silence stretched. Victor finally answered with a softness she didn't expect. "Because you asked." With that, he set the tray beside her and stepped back toward the door. "There's clothing for you in the closet," he said. "Dr. Petro will return later to check on you. Rest as much as you can." Before he left, he hesitated, just for a breath. "He won't come this morning," Victor added. "He has responsibilities, but he will check on you. He always does." The door closed softly behind him. Sarah stared at the tray, the room, the quiet, the cast. None of this felt real. Nothing in her life had ever come wrapped in comfort. Kindness had always been conditional. Safety had always required permission. Why would a stranger, a dangerous stranger, care what happened to her. But she was too tired to reason it out, too tired to fight confusion or fear. So she ate a little, drank the warm tea, and drifted back to sleep. She woke again in the afternoon, this time to the faint vibration of a phone on the nightstand. Not hers, a new one, clean, unbroken, no cracked screen, no hidden threats in the notifications. A single message glowed on the screen. How are you feeling? No name, no introduction, just a question. She stared at it for a long time, her heart tapping against her ribs. She typed slowly, carefully. Who is this? The reply came almost instantly. Alexei, did you sleep? Her breath caught. So that was his name? She typed back. Yes. Thank you for everything. I don't know how to repay you. You don't. He replied quickly, as if the thought offended him. Your safety is what matters. Her fingers hovered over the keys. What does handling the situation mean? There was a pause this time. Longer. Heavy. Better not to know the details. Her chest tightened, not in fear, but in something stranger, relief. That someone, somewhere, was taking care of a problem she had never been strong enough to solve. He won't bother you again, Alexei wrote. I promise you that. Promises usually unsettled her. They came with strings, expectations, punishments. But this one felt different. Solid. Stone-like. She should have feared it. But she didn't. For the first time in her life, someone's certainty felt like safety. The days that followed unfolded like a slow unwinding of the life she once knew. Victor checked on her daily, dropping off groceries, asking gently if she needed anything. Dr. Petro treated her injuries with quiet professionalism, explaining every step so she wouldn't flinch. Sarah quit her job over the phone, her voice trembling with both fear and freedom. She didn't tell them why. She didn't know them explanations. And every evening, without fail, her phone lit up with a new message from Alexei. Never long, never intrusive, just steady. Did you eat today? How's the pain? Are you resting? You are safe. Don't forget that. Sometimes he sent nothing more than good morning. Sometimes she sent nothing more than thank you. But the quiet rhythm became something she looked forward to. She felt embarrassed by how much comfort simple words from a stranger brought her. A stranger she still didn't understand. A stranger with power she could barely imagine. Still, she wondered what kind of man takes in a woman he doesn't know. What kind of man drops everything when a wrong number begs for help? What kind of man walks into a stranger's nightmare and doesn't leave until the nightmare is over? She was almost afraid to find out. But her curiosity grew each day. And on the fourth evening after a rescue, her phone buzzed with a message she didn't expect. May I visit you tonight? Her breath faltered. She typed back before she could think. Yes. When a knock came, she nearly jumped. She opened the door slowly, and her breath stopped. He was nothing like she remembered. Last time she saw him, she was half-conscious and terrified, taking in nothing but shadows and danger. But now he was just a man. Tall, calm, wearing a sweater that made him look impossibly human. But his eyes, those gray, storm-filled eyes, they were exactly as she remembered. They swept over her face carefully, not judging, not assessing, more like confirming that she was still here, still whole. You look better, he said. She almost laughed. I look like I lost a fight with a truck. The corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile, but something near it. You look alive, he said simply. That's what matters. He stepped inside without assuming space. He moved with quiet presence, as if he'd learned long ago how to control the air around him. He placed a small bag on the counter. I brought dinner. Something easy to eat until your ribs heal. He unpacked it slowly, deliberately. She watched him, not sure what to say. Not sure how you thank someone who saved you in every way a person could be saved. When they sat at the table, the silence between them stretched out. Not uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. He waited for her to eat first, saying nothing until she had settled. Victor said you quit your job, he said gently. She nodded. I couldn't go back there. Not after everything. That is understandable. It wasn't glamorous anyway. I was a dental hygienist. He looked at her for a moment, then asked, what would you do if you could do anything? She laughed softly. The question felt too big for someone who had spent years surviving instead of dreaming. I used to want to be a teacher, she admitted. Elementary school. I love kids, but I never finished my degree. Why not? She hesitated. Life, she said quietly. He tilted his head. Is that what we're calling him? She stiffened. The name, Derek, felt like poison in her throat. Alexei's expression softened, but his voice held an edge of steel. People like him don't deserve to be called life, Sarah. She looked down at her hands. He let the silence sit until she spoke again. He convinced me other people didn't understand us, she whispered. That they were jealous, that they didn't want me to be happy. By the time I realized he was isolating me, it was already done. Classic tactics of a coward, Alexei said. Only weak men terrorize what they cannot control. She glanced at him, surprised by the intensity in his tone. You sound like you know a lot about this. I make it my business to know many things, he replied. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. But then he added, almost reluctantly, Derek worked for people who pretend to be powerful, pretend to be dangerous. Men who play at fear but don't truly understand it. Sarah's eyes widened. So he wasn't connected? He was connected enough to terrify you, Alexei said softly. That alone is unforgivable. She swallowed. Could I have gone to the police? You could have, he said, but I'm glad you didn't. What? He leaned back, his eyes studying her with quiet intensity. Because then I wouldn't have met you. The air shifted, thickened, wrapped around them like a hell breath. She lowered her gaze, the weight of his words settling slowly, trembling like something fragile. You keep saying things, she whispered, things that make no sense. You don't know me. No, he said, but I'd like to. Her heart stumbled. I'm nobody, she murmured. He shook his head. You're a woman who asked for help when she had every reason to give up. You fought with what little you had left. That makes you braver than you think. She blinked hard. No one had ever said that to her. Not once in her entire life. Who are you, really? She asked. And don't say a businessman. He held her gaze for a long, weighted moment. My family has responsibilities, he said slowly. Some legitimate, some not. I inherited all of it. I'm not a simple man. Sarah, my world is not simple. Her breath tightened. She should have been afraid, but she wasn't. What did you do to Derek? She whispered. He's alive, Alexei said, alive and terrified, and aware that if he ever tries to find you, speak to you, or even think your name, he will disappear without a trace. She should have felt guilty. She didn't. She felt free. Good, she said quietly. His eyes darkened, not with danger, but with approval. They talked long into the night. About childhood, about dreams, about what fear feels like when you finally stop pretending you're not drowning. And when he finally stood to leave, she felt a pang of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. She didn't want to be alone. He moved toward the door slowly, almost reluctantly, as if leaving her was the one thing he couldn't quite make himself do. She whispered, thank you. For dinner. For listening. For everything. You don't need to thank me, he said. I do. He stepped closer. His hand rose, slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. He brushed a piece of hair behind her ear in a gesture so gentle it felt like a question. Then let me keep doing it, he murmured. Her breath caught. The moment lingered, soft, quiet, delicate. Then he left, and Sarah stood with her hand pressed to the spot where he had touched her, her heart pounding with something she hadn't felt in so long she barely recognized it. Hope. The weeks that followed were unlike any she had ever lived. Alexei visited often, but never uninvited. He always asked, always waited for her answer, always respected her pace. He brought food, books, flowers once so enormous she laughed until she cried. He listened to her stories, encouraged her dreams, asked questions no one had ever bothered to ask. And slowly, cautiously, she allowed herself to trust him. Trust his quiet strength. Trust his unwavering presence. Trust the strange, steady warmth he brought wherever he went. But most of all, she began to trust herself again. Her laughter returned, soft and unfamiliar at first, then stronger. Her confidence resurfaced, shy but persistent. She rediscovered pieces of herself she hadn't seen in years. Alexei saw them before she did. And one evening, Sitting together on the couch, he gently placed a hand on the back cushions and said, "Come work for me." She blinked. "Doing what?" "I run a community center," he said. "A place for kids. We need someone to help with education programs. Homework, reading activities. You be perfect." Her chest tightened. "Why me?" "Because you care," he said simply. "And because you understand what it feels like to need someone." Her eyes filled. "You trust me?" she whispered. "With more than you know," he replied. She nodded. And somewhere in that quiet nod, in that small but powerful choice, Sarah Mitchell stepped out of the life she had been surviving and into one she could finally begin to live. Sarah had never imagined her life could feel this full. For the first time in years, she woke with purpose, not fear. Her mornings began with quiet optimism and ended in soft, contented exhaustion. The children at the community center adored her. They clung to her sleeves, fought over who got to read with her, and ran to the door each afternoon the moment they saw her arrive. Their joy healed parts of her she didn't know were broken. Every day, she grew stronger, steadier, more certain of who she wanted to become. And every evening, Alexei found some excuse to stop by, checking on the center, reviewing paperwork, pretending he just happened to be in the area, though both of them knew he came for her. Their connection deepened like a river carving a path, slow, steady, inevitable. But the world has a habit of testing anything pure, and Alexei's world was never going to let him walk in peace, not even for her. The first sign of danger arrived on a quiet Thursday evening. The children had all gone home. The sky outside was a deep violet. Sarah was gathering notebooks when she felt a strange tension in the air, something sharp, like cold metal pressing against her skin. Victor stepped into the room with an expression she had never seen before. "Sarah," he said softly, "come with me." Now. Her heartbeat quickened. "What's wrong?" "Nothing yet," he replied. "Let's keep it that way." His calmness was more frightening than panic would have been. He guided her to a waiting car, eyes scanning every shadow along the sidewalk. The moment she was inside, he locked the doors manually, not electronically. That alone told her everything she needed to know. "What happened?" she whispered. Victor looked forward, jaw tight. "There was an incident today. Mr. Vulkov is handling it." The words settled in her stomach like ice. But he said nothing more, and she didn't ask. Sometimes silence tells the loudest truth. At the penthouse, the atmosphere was different, charged, heavy, as though the walls themselves were bracing for something. Sarah stood in the living room, holding the edges of her sleeves, waiting for a man whose presence had become her anchor. When Alexei finally stepped through the door, she could tell immediately the storm she had glimpsed the night he saved her was back. His eyes were cold, too cold. His usually measured steps carried something sharp beneath them. He removed his coat slowly, his shoulders tense beneath the fabric. She approached him carefully. "What happened?" He didn't answer at first. Instead, he reached for her, gently, reverently, lifting her chin so their eyes met. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No." "Did anyone approach you? Speak to you? Follow you?" "No, Alexei. Victor brought me straight here." Only then did some of the darkness ease. He exhaled, a low sound of relief. "Good." But his hands didn't drop from her arms. He stood there for a moment, grounding himself in her presence before he finally stepped back. "There was a betrayal today," he said quietly. "Someone tried to undermine a deal that keeps this city from turning into a battlefield." Sarah stiffened. "What does that have to do with me?" Alexei hesitated, and that hesitation frightened her more than anything else. "They couldn't reach me," he said. "So they look for leverage." Her breath caught. "They know about me." "Everyone knows about me," he replied. "But not everyone should know about you." Her chest tightened. "What does that mean?" "It means I should have protected you better." He moved past her, pacing slowly, an animal caged by responsibility and emotion. His fists tightened, his jaw flexed. Every movement radiated control, stretched thin. She stepped closer. "You have protected me." He stopped, turning to face her. "Not enough," he said. The days that followed were laced with tension. Alexei increased security around the center. Victor shadowed her more closely. Even the penthouse felt different, no longer a sanctuary, but a refuge with guards at every door. Sarah tried to stay calm. She tried not to worry. She tried to trust that Alexei knew what he was doing. But late at night, when sleep refused to come, she wondered if she had stepped into a world she didn't understand. A world that could swallow her whole. Still, she didn't leave. And he noticed. Every evening, he watched her with a mixture of awe and fear. Fear that she might one day realize the danger attached to his name and walk away before he could stop her. One night, after another too quiet dinner, she placed her hand over his. "You don't have to protect me from your world," she whispered. "You just have to stand with me in it." He looked at her for a long time, too long, before finally speaking. "Marry me." She froze. "What?" "Marry me," he repeated. "I'll give you a life where no one can touch you. A life where you choose your future. A life where your past never follows. I don't want your gratitude, Sarah. I want your partnership." Her eyes filled with tears. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "I have never been more certain of anything." And just like that, with trembling hands and a heart overflowing with something she wasn't sure she deserved, she said yes. They held on to each other like two souls who had survived too much to ever love halfway again. It should have been the beginning of peace. It wasn't. The kidnapping didn't happen in darkness. It happened under sunlight. Proof that danger doesn't always creep. Sometimes it strikes. Sarah left the community center with Victor beside her, as always. Children waved goodbye behind them, shouting her name. She took one step toward the car, and a black van screeched to a stop. Doors flew open, shouting, chaos, hands grabbing, Victor yelling her name. In the seconds that followed, everything blurred. She fought, kicked, screamed, bit down on someone's arm until she tasted blood. But they were strong. There were too many. And Victor, she watched him fall, struck from behind. They dragged her into the van, tied her wrists, covered her mouth. The world spun. The door slammed. And the last thing she heard before losing consciousness was one of them saying, "Call his number. Tell him we have his weakness." When Sarah woke, she was tied to a chair in a warehouse that smelled of oil and rust. Her head throbbed. Her pulse raced. But her fear turned to ice when she recognized the man standing across from her, a face she had seen once before in a photo on Alexei's desk. A rival. Someone Alexei had warned her never to trust. He smiled as if they were sharing a polite conversation. "You must be the girl he's lost his mind over." She glared at him. "You want him? Take your fight to him. Leave me out of it." He laughed softly. "Oh, I intend to." He circled her slowly. But men like Alexei do not bleed easily. They must be persuaded. Sarah swallowed her fear. "You're making a mistake," she whispered. "Am I?" he asked. "Because the way he's been tearing apart this city looking for you, I'd say I found exactly the right pressure point." Her stomach twisted. He stepped closer. "Tell me, Sarah, do you love him?" She didn't answer. He laughed again. "You don't need to. I can see it." Her hands trembled in their restraints. "And that," he said, "is what will break him." She lifted her chin. "Alexei doesn't break." He leaned close, whispering, "Everyone breaks." She met his eyes. Not him. Her courage surprised even herself. But that was the thing about love. It made you brave in ways fear never could. The rescue came like thunder, a distant roar at first, then boots on concrete, shouting, glass shattering, gunshots echoing like storms cracking through steel. Sarah flinched, heart hammering. The warehouse door exploded inward, and Alexei walked in, not running, not frantic, walking, cold, deadly, unstoppable. Rage controlled so tightly it radiated from him like heat. The men who tried to block him didn't last seconds. He moved through them with terrifying precision. Everything quiet, efficient, inevitable. A man who had not come to negotiate. A man who had come to retrieve what was his. When he reached Sarah, his expression cracked. Her breath left her when she saw his eyes, not furious, but terrified. Terrified of losing her. He cut her restraints with trembling hands. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "Did they touch you?" "No." He exhaled a shudder that almost broke her. Before she could speak, he pulled her into his chest, holding her with both arms as though someone might tear her away again if he loosened his grip even slightly. She felt him breathe her in, a man who had been denied air until this moment. She whispered, I told him you don't break. He cupped her face gently, forehead resting against hers. You're wrong, he whispered. I only break for you. The police arrived late, long after Alexei's men had secured the area. Questions were asked, answers avoided. But Sarah stayed silent, tucked into Alexei's side, refusing to be separated from him even for a moment. Later, when they were finally alone, when the chaos had faded into quiet, he held her on the couch like he was afraid she might vanish. She touched his cheek softly. I'm okay. You could have died. I didn't. He closed his eyes, breathing slowly through the storm inside him. I can't lose you, he whispered. I can survive wars, betrayals, enemies, but not that. She kissed his forehead. You won't. They sat together in silence, wrapped in warmth and exhaustion. And in that moment, the truth settled between them. They had faced his world, her past, their enemies, their fears, and they were still standing, stronger than before, closer than before, bound by something deeper than luck or danger. Choice. Sarah had chosen him, and Alexei had chosen her long before she realized it. A wrong number had brought them together, but the world could not tear them apart. Not now. Not ever. Thank you for watching this story to the end. Subscribe for more powerful story. Stay tuned. Your next story is already unfolding.